everybody, I am Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and today I am super excited to be showing you how you can create for yourself at home this gorgeous landscape scene of poppies with a beautiful sunset. I'm going to explain every part of it, all the techniques, everything you need to know about the acrylic, how to make this painting for yourself. To help me do that is my husband, John.
Hey guys.
You make sure that you don't miss any part of what I'm doing by zooming in, so if I'm doing a technique, you really see it, and that really facilitates you at home. I would like to point out that this one painting is part of a 30 painting series that I would love to invite you to take part of. But if you're here just to do this one, that's totally fine. That's completely okay. I would love it if you would get your paint, get your brushes, come back and meet me at the easel right now. You can paint this. Today's colors are burnt sienna, phthalo green, ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, quinacridone magenta, cad red medium, cad yellow medium, Naples yellow light, and titanium white. Now, we're going to do this background a little differently than we did on the others. You're going to take your T-square ruler, or even just your eyes, and you're going to make a mark. I'll use watercolor pencil at the 3-inch line. I'm going to come across, and this, above this is going to be my sky, and below this is going to be my poppy field, and they need two different undercolors today. Because they're so different from each other, I need to use two different ones, which it's different than the other ones I've done so far.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm going to take a small amount. I've got my Cambridge here, just because it's a nice big brush, and I'm going to load it with just the smallest amount of phthalo blue. I'm going to add it into my Naples yellow light and even add some white to it. So it's kind of like a bluish green. I'm going to come here, and everything above this is going to be our bluish green color. Just continuing grabbing blue and white. It's okay if it's streaky. You just want to paint all of the top this color. Then the bottom part is going to be phthalo green and burnt sienna. So everything below that line all the way down is that. Now, paint the sides if you need to, and paint the entire surface, the top being our first mix and the bottom being our second mix. Let's go. So once you have the top painted with our lighter mixture and the bottom 2/3 painted with our darker mixture, we're actually still going to grid. I like to do this particular one this way just because it will really help us get the two very different value sets well represented. Now I'm going to make a mark with my chalking tool every 1 inch, and then I will make vertical and horizontal lines from that, creating a 1 inch by 1 inch grid on our 8x8 canvas. And then when it's done, I'm going to number those squares on the top row from 1 to 8, going left to right. And then when that's done, I'm going to number the left row from top to bottom, 1 to 8. Once your grid is entirely in, how you're going to use this is taking your reference. You draw only what you see in that particular square. So if I'm talking about maybe certain things like where my focal of my sunlight is, I can put that here on row 3, line 5. And then also as how I'm going to be doing the clouds in this. Sometimes it can be helpful, especially if you struggle with clouds, to take the time to draw them, or at least their contour shapes out a bit, while you still can. Because sometimes when you get in it, it's hard to remember how you want to do your clouds. So giving yourself a little bit of a nice contour line. Gotta get that dark enough so we can see it. All right. Then the other thing that I'm going to talk about here is my landscape kind of perspective, which is happening here. That's the back of the poppy field. And then interestingly enough, I'm going to come down forward here. Once you have everything graphed in, and on this one, you're just trying to get the major lines of the landscape and maybe some stuff to say, these back here is the small flowers, these up here are the big flowers. I would say that we've accomplished step one beautifully. Let's come back and I'm going to show you how to paint in that spectacular sky. So in step two, I'm going to start laying in the sky, and I want to create the glow on the horizon line, the very bright kind of yellow-orange area, and then also show it transitioning into the blue. And sometimes going from that orange to blue is very difficult. I'm really excited because the Naples yellow is going to help us do that actually a little bit. Now first, I'm going to go ahead and take a bit of my cad red, just a small amount, into my cad yellow. And as you can see, that warms up quite a nice bit. You can go ahead and even add some of your Naples yellow light to it. And we'll begin by just coming above our horizon line that we have here. And paint this little strip here, this kind of orange yellow. And around the side. Always nice. Now we've got tree lines and things, so we're going to be able to make it easier and better. Towards the center, I'm going to get a little more of my cad yellow and my Naples yellow. And I'm going to lighten that center part right there, as you can see. As I move up, it'll be important for me to get some white into my brush and the smallest amount of my phthalo blue, and it's going to make this halftone. Just getting a smidge of water. And I'm going to be able to blend in that halftone from where my yellow is, as you can see, to this kind of mid-range. It's almost a green. Next time that you're, looking at the sky, look to see how the light mixes color. Right, John?
Mm-hmm.
That's the most interesting thing. Kind of take in how the light mixes color. I'm painting over my cloud information, John.
You're gonna repaint it in, right?
I gotta repaint it in. I'll be okay. It's just, I just realized, I painted out all my beautifully drawn clouds. I'm going to continue coming up. I'm going to take a little bit of my blue into that mix and still white. But you can see it takes it more towards a blue as we're going, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And goes right over our background just beautifully. We're now seeing a great transition between those two color sets. It's natural. So even though this is one of the hardest skies to do, once you understand what you're dealing with, it actually gets a bit easier. Just a bit more blue into that mix for up here. You can even take it around the side if you want, but that's just up at the top. See, it's just a hair darker. Ooh, it's not about that, right?
I like this guy.
I like this sky quite a lot too. And I'm glad that I get to kind of show this particular transitional sky because it's one that's a little bit harder to get sometimes. All right, let's call that step 2. And when we come back, I'm going to show you how to put in some of the cloud forms and some of the other values that makes the sky pop, pop, pop. So as I'm coming up here, I've got to get in some sort of dark strata because we talked about how sunsets work. We're going to look at a different functionality of sunsets. I'm going to bring my ultramarine blue into my phthalo blue, mixing in a half and half mix. I do like them full strength. I'm using my number 8 Cambridge still. And I'm going to come over here and begin the light, airy, kind of deep strata up here, up the top. So you can see these are dark values. I use my corner a lot. I find it helps me. dry brush. It's just a little bit of a distant, something's happening.
Just a little bit in the distance.
Little bit in the distance. And then here, I'm going to begin to use the corner of my brush, and we'll put up some of those little cloud forms I was talking about. I love the corner. Bring that out a bit. You can see I just love using that corner. You know, I say a lot, and I'm somebody who actually has a brush labeled the cloud brush, which is really a great dry brushing brush for clouds, for stuff like that, that it's really never the brush, right? You can cloud with a palette knife, you can cloud with your finger, you can cloud with so many things. And it's important to remember that the cloud isn't you. The instruments are just your way of expressing that wonderful, special little moment. Look at that.
Wow.
So we're starting to get there. But there's an interesting thing happens on skies like this where there's a wholly different cloud almost in the second half. You know, almost there in the second half. I'm going to take a bit of my Naples yellow and a smidge of my quinacridone. So they're just warmed a bit. You might even grab a little of your, it's kind of that peachy color, right? Get some white into it. This is the beginning. There'll be more, but we're going to start here. And let's add the peach to the bottom there. Spectacular, isn't it? When you start to put in those strange highlights and things that will make a wonderful little cloud set. Can even come with some of the white. Well, the peachy color. Wonderful little peachy color. Maybe even a little bit of it back this way. And if you need a bit more color into it, you can always get it. Right? You'll want to use these warmer colors because what happens when stuff's near the sun, it is impacted by it in value and hue. Interestingly enough, it's not white, is it?
It's kind of pinkish.
Kind of pinkish. There we go. I rather like that. Now, let's call that, because that's a lot to take in. I'm kind of breaking it down on the clouds because I want you guys to be able to have a chance to take in those forms. And then I'm going to come back and show you how to kind of refine these and get the rest of the glow in the sky. So as we come on to step 4, we're going to do a couple things to help these clouds feel really special. And you do want them to feel really special. To do that, I'm going to get my number 4 round. And I'm going to grab a little bit of my yellow. Maybe some of my pad red. Terrific color combo. I'm going to add a glow. And a bit of some delicate refinement to this. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
And if you need to come in here, you can always patch that. And sometimes I'll bring it back into the little cloud just so we can really see it. If you need to change the shape and directionality, you are good. Add some of this bright focus right here. Can you see?
I love that. Yellow is just
Just kind of on there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now back into sort of our peach, but I will get more white involved in it. A lot more. Sometimes it's nice to show the kind of halo outline that might be happening here. That's what I'm doing, that little halo outline. You know, a little bit of that light. Bring it up through there. Create a bit of that drama. Then I'm going to get, oh, just some white. Sometimes it's powerful to just, even in that refined little bit of light. Not everywhere. And then just right here, we'll speak about that distant little sun. Around that sun, I'm going to take some of my yellow and white. And you'll see me kind of, I don't paint away the little dot, but I kind of give it a little bit of a shimmer so that it's perhaps not as overwhelming right there. And then you can, if you want, very lightly create the sense of, I'm going to do it this way too. I turn the canvas just so that I have a better angle.
Mm-hmm.
There. What do you think of that?
I love it.
Who doesn't have a gorgeous little sort of different sunset? That's one we haven't done, and I think it's going to be an interesting one for you guys to learn about.
I'm excited.
Are you excited?
I like it.
When we come back for step 5, we're going to start working on our landscape. So for the next part, I'm going to combine both my number 4 round and my Cambridge. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my green and my brown, and if necessary, even some of my ultramarine, because it makes almost a chromatic black that is not black. I'm going to come to the background, and like right near my sun, I'm going to tap up and down a little bit. Little bits of greenery and leavery. And the reason for this is even though I'm going to come through with my Cambridge and create some nice stiff little bushes, it's great to say, hey, there's some distant little trees. And I'm not trying to like do that thing where you paint like every single leaf ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes balancing out a loose bit of painting with these little moments of more attention can create a bit of magic. Let's hope so.
Yeah.
Let's hope so as we're doing this work. And this is just kind of along here in a few places, and then we'll come back with our Cambridge brush and make more solid bits of things. But we want some leaves that are here, letting some of the sunlight peek through. That always helps when we're speaking to a landscape, I think. Just have fun. Let's have fun. Dotty dot dot fun. Try not to make the same shape again and again and again, which I've kind of done here. My mom likes to call it cloning.
It's really, I'm sort of enamored by the tiny little dots that you're making there.
Tiny little dots, just initially. Don't spend so much time on them. This is just about making little impressions, right? These are little impressions. And in a minute, these little impressions will be filled out and blended into some very, nice dry brushing brushwork, but just a little bit of an impression can sometimes be a big deal to your mind's eye. Now, once that little impression is there, I'm going to go back into my Cambridge. I'm going to make sure it's not too wet. I always like to drag it out on my towel. Back into my ultramarine blue, my phthalo green, my burnt sienna. Takes a very dark kind of foliage color. Just sort of up and down, kind of blending into what's there. And I am erasing the hard line that I had, but you can see those little leaves remain. And you can still do little kind of soft edged backgrounds and bushes and things. But it is nice to have that deep value around the side. Around the side, just to give the impression. You can be as precious about that as you want. Maybe a little more brown. This is the feeling of some texture of some bushes, but we're not really going to see them individually, are we? They're very backlit. We just catch their leaves up above that little sunlit line. Now I'm going to rinse out, and we're going to do something really interesting here. I'm going to take my green and a bit of my cad yellow. It's okay if it gets into it mixed with the burnt sienna, because we want a greener little row before we get into the poppies. And coming here, I might even be inclined to kind of get some, it's weird, it's almost an orange into it. Just to say, hey. Little light. A little light bit good?
Yeah.
Maybe here where it could catch. And there, caught some, and you can always sort of also get your brush on its corner and go push, 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 push,
Push, push, push, push.
Fantastic. There we go. That's the distant greenery. How fun was that to put in?
Really nice.
You're never going to fear distant greenery again. You're going to be like, oh, it's a little brush and it's a scrubby brush, and then I'm going to just, and I'm done. I'm great. I'm good. I'll see you back for more of our landscape. So as we're coming forward on our poppies, there's a bunch of things we're going to do. And I've been blessed to actually paint poppies on location in France and photograph them and observe them. And one of the things that you'll want to do is kind of mute them as they're farther back. So I'm going to take a little of my cad red into my quinacridone magenta. All right, it's much darker. And you can even get a little bit of your ultramarine blue. You're just trying to darken this. And back here, I'm going to begin to speak on some distant little poppies. They kind of blend right into the green. I'm wiggling my brush back and forth. And bring it forward a bit, because we'll layer brighter and brighter colors as we go. Good to keep that kind of space a bit random. And then as I come forward, I can always just put a little more cad red. See, just a touch, just brightens it a bit, as if a bit of light caught a couple spots. Check that out.
Yeah.
The beginning of your distant poppies. And they're distant.
They are.
You can always rinse out your brush too if you want to make sure that these edges are as soft as possible. And on this type of brush, like, I can kind of come back and forth and soften. And whenever you soften an edge like this visually, it helps with the atmospheric perspective of pushing it out into the distance. Because we tend to see hard edges as they come closer to us. Now this mid-zone here is definitely more distinctly poppies, right? So we're going to take a bit of our mix of quinacridone and cad red. It won't be our brightest mix, but it will be brighter. And we're going to just simply kind of tap that up and down. Not our brightest mix. We have to reserve our brightest reds for up front. And our most defined shapes for as they get closer. Stepping back, steppy. Making these sort of little rough up and down marks. Now right around here, we're going to start to see some green and some individual poppies. So I'm going to rinse out. I'm going to take my green into my burnt sienna again, but not as much. I'll grab my cad yellow and let's come with a little of this green. We will be coming back over with some red in it. You can always get more darker green as well. In fact, I'm going to put out a little more green and kind of break that up so that when I come back with my other kind of slightly more, not really defined poppies, but slightly more defined poppies, before I get to my really, really defined poppies, right? Which I actually can bring this whole thing forward. You can see I plan to use a lot more green. I will keep it a bit to this, as you do. Maybe a little darker green out here towards the outer edges. So whenever I do this, where I kind of alternate a bright green and a dark green, it just begins to speak to what you can see in the landscape. Because sometimes the greens peek through and sometimes they're well lit, you know, because they're impacted by the sunlight. Grabbing a little more yellow. That was a nice amount to take in, wasn't it? And you can kind of see this sort of almost Monet impressionistic thing I'm doing here.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and call that step 6 because I'm going to want this to dry a little bit before I put my next layer of slightly more defined poppies on it. Well, this is just turning into a gorgeous landscape. This next part, we're going to do anything we need to knock this area back. But remember, we can always go back and glaze it with our magenta to actually cool it and help it recede. But what I want to do is start to create not totally defined poppy structures through here, but more defined poppy structures. So I'm going to grab a little bit of my magenta in my cad red with my number 4 round. And I'm going to create these little sort of shapes with the dots. Like not the poppy, just the shape of poppy. Right? You can come in and add a little water, yellow to it. And
now you have to be careful not to get too much water on there because then you'll end up with the shape of water.
You didn't even watch that movie.
I don't even know what it's about.
He doesn't.
I think there's a fish in it.
There's some fish in it. Just putting out some individual flowers, like this one is a lot more magenta. And that's okay. We're speaking to the shapes, but not really saying every flower. If one of the poppies goes above that line, which some of them will, it's a good idea to take more of a cad and help that line break up a bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just little individual touches We just have a lot to do, my friends. Painting poppies is one of my very favorite things. I think because it's intrinsically relaxing. I
Mm-hmm.
have to say that this year it was really hard for me not to just paint 30 poppy paintings. Be like, look, we're good at this one skill now.
But I like poppies.
I do too. Paint poppies at night, poppies at dawn, all the poppies. So you can see as we're going through there, these are starting to find their definitions. You can grab any of your yellows into your mix and sometimes even talk a bit about maybe some light catching something in some areas, especially here, maybe a bit on the center. You see how that kind of is?
You keep psyching me out. I think you're getting more paint, and you're not. That brush just has lots of paint on it.
It does. And I will go get paint. You'll notice that I picked up several different colors. And I'll want to kind of start to talk about what is bright there. I may even very carefully get a little just my cad red on here. And also right here through the center of this grouping, light that a bit. You see how I've done?
Mm-hmm.
Starting to create a keyhole of light. I need a little Naples and a little cad. Get a little bit of all my little colors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't want to go out much past that. Then as I'm going, I can be much more magenta cad red. See how I'm just touching little bits of paint. I'm painting the shape of a tulip. Not tulip, but poppy. Not poppies. Paint the shape of the poppy.
Mm.
And the poppies are, as you can tell, maybe a little darker to this outside edge. It's almost, there's like a little keyhole of light, huh?
Yeah.
Coming down. And you want that. Let's exaggerate that reality. So that's that level. And the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take green forward more, but I'm going to make sure it's my darkest kind of green. I'm going to take my ultramarine and my phthalo green and a little of my burnt umber and make sure that this here, as I'm coming forward, has a very dark base. Very dark base. And darkest to this outside edge, you can kind of blend up into that area.
Mm.
Now coming forward, you will want to grab some cad yellow. And apply a little bit of this, yes?
Yeah.
Something lighter. You can see I'm just making little downward strokes. It's still dark, but just a little bit lighter through there. Now up front, I definitely want it to be dark. So I'm going to end that little keyhole of brightness kind of right there. Because I do want what's closest to me to be very deep because it's closer, it's richer. It has a bit more going on. To that end also, I'm going to come here and just a couple places A little of my Naples yellow into that. Just keyhole that too. I think we're going to be super pleased with the end result of this. Fantastic, delightful, yet super chill poppy painting. I'm going to come back and I'm going to dry this for the next layer, and I'm going to show you how to paint the more focal poppies. So as we're coming forward, we're going to focus on the bigger poppies. I'm going to continue to use my number 4 round unless it becomes a hindrance to my goal here. And I'm going to go ahead and get some clean water so all my colors are really, really, really bright. I'm going to start making some bigger poppies. Now, I still like my Quinn and Cad mix to help create some shadows and stuff on the poppies. And it can be helpful to have your darker value in first and then be able to come back with some light values. So out here, we'll say the poppies are about that big. I'm just creating kind of little shapes because they're really sort of just round-ish. They're roundish. And they will clump together, so you'll need to do those. And you'll define them as separate by the little centers if you put a little dark center, or if you put highlights. I'll put a nice big one right there, and even over my other stuff. I don't mind, because I want to talk about more intensely focal ones. You still have some different sizes. And they're just kind of weird little smears. These are fun to paint.
They are.
Sometimes they have buds almost like a rose. Sometimes they're open like a dish. And you've got to be kind of open-minded to all the ways that a poppy will show itself to you. Not that I'm implying that you're closed-minded on your poppy game. Maybe you're very open-minded about all your poppies. Some of the definition of them will happen once we have the kind of general placement of them in. And then we'll come in and add some highlights and some depth and perspective. But it just helps to get the red on first.
Yeah.
If you are painting a very inexpensive paint and you find that you just cannot get your red over your green, you may need to very carefully go through and do this technique with white, allow it to dry, and paint these areas specifically red. I very much like to use what I do because I don't like to be messed with. And I talk about that a lot, about not wanting to be messed with. That's pretty on point.
Yeah.
So I want you guys to be able to kind of look at the shapes and really see those before I refine them. So let's call this its cohesive step, just so you can really examine these and look at these and go, this is what these look like. So this looks cute. We're
Yeah.
pretty good. There's some stuff, but let's make it a little bit better. And to do that, we're gonna paint some highlights in here. We're gonna talk about different values, and so I'm gonna take my red and really mix it with some yellow. Make kind of an orange red. And on a few of these, like let's say we're talking here, I'm going to add that highlight right there. These will be little highlights where maybe bits of the sun, right, which it can do, are catching them.
Wow.
Not everything, just some. As I'm coming forward, maybe those oranges get darker, right? Because they're still in the corridor, but they're not quite in that hot spot of the light. Sometimes we don't think about these little things when we're painting, especially when we're painting loosely, because it's a weird effect. When you paint very objectively, you will give yourself a chance to notice these little elements, but sometimes when you're being loose, harder to do so. Natural human thing. You can see I found a little bit of highlight of sun there. Now I'm going to get into my cad red. Make some petals there. So I'm going to have some be closed. I would only see parts of them or the closed part of the flower. Others would be open. And to that end, actually, a thing I can do to help myself. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to take our ultramarine blue and some of our brown. And for the purposes of this piece, we'll call this black. Put a little dot there. We're going to show some of the faces through dots. The dots?
Yeah.
And when we come back, with a little another layer where we kind of peek it in there or maybe hide it, that will be super helpful. You can even kind of speak to like ones that are perhaps facing different directions. You can face the poppies different directions. Let's stop that right now so you guys can take that in. I'm going to dry it, and then we'll do the last petals and some highlights.
Perfect.
We're going to close up some of the poppies. We're going to add some highlights of sunlight and things coming down through these guys. Like right now, I want to grab a little bit of my yellow and my red, making quite a bright color. And I want to come back here even into this and touch some of these guys up. And then maybe back here, and add a little light into that. as you do. All right, we're just taking, it's not completely yellow, but it's kind of like a closer to it. Come in here and again, not everything, just some of the things. Maybe we define a little bit more. Remember how some of it's more in definition and some not? Just a little bit of light coming down. You may even want to go yellow and white.
Wow.
You're just speaking to just a little sunlight that's caught the flowers. Last little touch. I'm going to come in with my Cad Red. And some of these I will add petals like that to kind of close them. You know, petals are red. If I want to leave them open, I can just make round, more defined shapes. Okay? Just loosely expressing some of that there. Who knew poppies could be so much fun? And it's really a lovely piece, right?
Yeah. That's very impasto.
Very impasto. Very, very impasto. And focal and pure pigment because we're trying to create
That's really nice.
those little touches. And you just play with that till you're really happy with how your field has come out. I am currently happy with this. I feel like I'm warmed up today. I feel like I've been creative. I'm ready to sign. I think I'll sign in a bright green. Taking my signature brush and thinning that paint out so it gives me a nice signature. This is my #1 monogram liner. And I'll come right here and sign my painting. That is our poppy field. And I'm really pleased with it. I'm glad we did one this year. I love it. One of the things I really loved about this particular lesson is the way that it demonstrated light, the corridor of light coming into the poppies, how things can be loose and yet look like what they are. Just all the little elements. I'm really hoping some of this sort of unlocked distant landscape concepts and cloud concepts. It was my pleasure to spend this time with you. Now, as I mentioned, it's a big program if you'd like to take part, and to entice you to do so, tomorrow we're going to be coming back and painting a blue rose. I think you guys are going to like it. I would love to see you there. Be good to yourself, be good to each other, and I want to see you at an easel really soon.